Hello, my friends, and welcome to Philippines Update. For today's news, Philippine under MGCQ will lead to harmonized travel regulations by DILG, but President Rodrigo Duterte says no. President Rodrigo Duterte has refused to place the entire Philippines under the Modified General Community Quarantine, or MGCQ, until after the government kicks off its vaccination drive. Before you head into conclusions, let's dive in. What is the proposed MGCQ and what it really means for the country? The Department of Interior and Local Government, or DILG, said easing the quarantine status of the country to Modified General Community Quarantine, or MGCQ, starting March, would address the fragmented travel restrictions by local government units across the country. The move was proposed by the IATF and the National Economic Development Authority, or NEDA. There is a need to harmonize and streamline the different travel restrictions imposed by LGUs to domestic travelers. These vary from province to province, placing the entire country under one quarantine classification would allow the DILG to harmonize the fragmented travel regulations across the country. DILG Undersecretary and spokesperson Jonathan Malaya said in a statement on Saturday. He said they see the urgent need to remove redundancy in domestic tourist travel requirements and impose less stringent requirements by managing the health risks through other means. Malaya said the DILG has organized a technical working group that is currently working with the various local government leagues under the Union of Local Authorities in the Philippines, or ULAP, to streamline local regulations for domestic travel as well as recommended best options to encourage domestic travel for leisure to revive the heavily hit travel and tourism sector and related industries, while managing the risk of COVID-19 transmission. The people are confused about travel regulations because they vary from province to province. While some LGUs require a travel authority, some do not. Some LGUs require an antigen test, some do not. Some LGUs require PCR tests, and some don't. Some even require 14-day quarantine regardless of PCR results. We need the regulation to be streamlined, and placing the country under one classification would help in the ongoing harmonization, Malaya said. We need to take a hard look if the regulation we impose are consistent with specific data on prevention of COVID-19 transmission, he added. Citing figures from the NEDA, he said quarantine restrictions put in place since March 2020 have caused a total income loss of 1.04 trillion pesos that year. On average, that translated to 2.8 billion pesos in salaries loss, or an annual income loss of 23,000 pesos per worker. Malaya, however, clarified that a less restrictive quarantine classification or the harmonization of domestic travel regulations would not abandon health protocols in total disregard of the pandemic. We are not saying that we will remove all travel restrictions and go back to where we came from. That's impossible because COVID-19 is still here. We just need to streamline because we need our economy to be revived and address the hunger, loss of jobs, and economic opportunities that came as a result of the travel restrictions, he said. He said 30% of the public still cannot go to work and 50% of the people cannot take public transport. People need to be able to commute to go to work or to earn a living, he said. Malaya said the domestic airline industry has also asked the DILG to address this issue since the local air carriers have accumulated a 47.4 billion pesos net income loss as of September of last year alone. Despite the reopening of major regional airports, the domestic airline industry has seen a slump in domestic passengers and domestic cargo carried due to fragmented LGU regulations compared to our Asian neighbors, where Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand have already revived their domestic travel industry to 2019 levels, he said. Now that we know what is the proposed MGCQ, let's take a look on how and why did the government still choose not to place the Philippines in the MGCQ status. President spokesperson Harry Roque said the president's preference not to shift to MGCQ unless there is a vaccine rollout was raised during the ongoing cabinet meeting. President Rodrigo Duterte gave his directive to the cabinet that the Philippines would not be placed under modified general community quarantine unless there is a rollout of vaccines, he said. While Duterte acknowledged the need to reopen the economy, Roque said the president refused to put people's health and safety at risk. The chief executive recognizes the importance of reopening the economy and its impact on people's livelihood. However, the president gives higher premium to public health and safety, he added. Roque said Duterte also emphasized his desire for vaccination to start the soonest possible time to ease the community quarantine. In a separate message, Senator Christopher Bongo said Duterte thinks that further easing the nationwide quarantine classification is not to the best interest of the country. Citing the president, Go said Duterte's conscience would not allow a transition to MGCQ because he is concerned that something might go wrong. Go said Duterte expressed confidence that his economic managers will understand his decision. He noted that Duterte also reiterated his preference not to allow the dry run of face-to-face classes until the immunization program starts. The national government is expected to kick off its vaccination drive this month with the arrival of initial doses of COVID-19 vaccines. Earlier, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said Duterte will decide on the next quarantine classification based on current COVID-19 data analytics. He said Duterte has thumbed down the proposal to hold pilot in-person classes next month, but is open to conduct the dry run by August. I guess what he is anticipating is since we will begin vaccination this month, we will be way ahead of our vaccination in August to give us the confidence to resume at least limited face-to-face education, he said. The IATF and the National Economic and Development Authority or NEDA have recommended that the government push through with a nationwide MGCQ with pilot in-person classes next month. And that's all for our news today, my friends. Let me know in the comment section below what do you guys think on the current actions that the Philippine government is taking. Do you think this is a wrong move for the Philippines? As always, I hope I will see you guys in the islands. But for now, take care. See you on the next video.